Hello, and thanks for listening to the second Slightly Sidetracked podcast. My name is Luke, I'm an attempted writer, YouTuber and bank robber. This time, the plan is to talk about a movie called 10 Cloverfield Lane. It came out earlier this year, and on DVD quite recently, well maybe a month or so ago. I'm going to be spoiling the plot quite a bit, so if you haven't seen it, feel free to quickly rush out, buy the DVD, grab some popcorn, there's always time for a Coke, watch the movie, perhaps nod in appreciation, or maybe shake your fist in anger, shouting about how I'll rule the day for asking you to watch this atrocious movie. Then head back to this podcast and perhaps comment about your own opinions, and then maybe listen to the rest. Right, so that's the spoiler warning out of the way, so let's get down to it. Back at the beginning of the year, I was taken by surprise when the film was announced. I hadn't heard anything about it beforehand. It seemed to slip under my radar a little. I just saw a random trailer on TV one day and was really interested. The trailer set up the movie really well and got me hooked right away to want to go see it. It seemed mysterious, it looked intense, the cast seemed great. Then, at the end of the trailer, the title was revealed, 10 Cloverfield Lane. So the question was, how was this linked to the shaky cam film from 2008? Would there be other giant monsters in this one too? The trailer did its job though. I really wanted to see this movie, and I even dragged two good friends alongside me to go see it as soon as it was out. I assumed it would have science fictional elements, based on the name. But the trailer, alongside hearing things such as monsters come in many forms, which I think was the tagline for the movie, I started to think it was going to be more grounded, focusing on human characters instead. To be honest, I was up for either option. Now, if you've seen the movie, you know that the ending, spoiler, includes some sort of alien encounter. But the majority of the film is all about three individuals in a bunker and the tension building in this claustrophobic delight. So I guess I got to enjoy both aspects, although I know that the ending to this movie is really dividing. I've spoken to people who, like me, enjoyed it, but others said that the ending almost, or even did, ruin the entire film for them. What did you think about the ending? I'd love to hear more opinions about it, really. I'm going to discuss the ending a bit more later in the podcast too. Right, so the film starts off with the main character, Michelle, running away from her troubles, which seems to be her character arc for the movie, and then proceeding to be rammed off the road by another vehicle. Waking up in a locked cell-like room, she begins attempting to escape. Damn, she was really resourceful. I imagine if I was in that same situation, I'd probably be sat on the bed wondering what the hell to do, and then John Goodman would come in and give me dinner, and yeah, it probably wouldn't be a very exciting film. But anyway, her escape attempts are halted by Howard, the owner of the bunker, who explains that she cannot go back up to the surface as the air is contaminated in the most deadly of deadly ways. All speculation, of course, but we should probably trust the creepy alternative self of Sully from Monsters Inc., right? After a few more escape attempts and bonding with fellow survivor Emmett, who, I don't know about you, but I spent the first half of the film suspecting that it was going to do the old I was in on it the whole time reveal, but fortunately it didn't arrive. Eventually though, they all start getting along like one big happy family, or at least an awkward one where you're suspicious that the dad might be a twisted kidnapper and killer. So, links to the first film. Well, at first glance, there doesn't seem to be any. The world seems pretty normal. No mention of a giant monster attack or the aftermath. The idea of alien space worms is still considered a ridiculous concept. So, did that mean that it was set before the events of the first film? Probably not, since Michelle has quite a modern phone, and considering the movie ends with implying the world is being rather inconveniently invaded by aliens trying to take over, it doesn't seem to fit that the first film would have taken place during the time of the bunker either, and we don't even know really how long they were down there. But, saying that, we do have small details linking them. For example, Howard apparently used to work for the satellite company that had their own satellite fall down and awaken the beast in the first film. So it leaves a lot of questions about how these films are related. So it's been quite a few years since I last saw Cloverfield. Despite the shaky cam found footage experience, I remember still enjoying it. It was a simple tale of a group of friends trying to survive and to get to one of the characters' ex, I think. Nothing amazing, but I remember it being enjoyable at the time. Reading all the theories that surrounded it was pretty good too. Ideas about if the monster was always underwater, or did it come from space? Was there an ancient civilization before us that left it there? Was there a second monster attack at the same time? There were apparently hints in the film that suggested that might be the case. People also noticed that on a scene on a bridge, a second person seemed to be filming the events and they pause very briefly on our own filmmaker before carrying on. This is what people assumed a sequel would be about, following this second person with the camera, their version of events, and perhaps seeing what this other monster attack was that was happening at the same time. So I guess 10 Cloverfield Lane was even more of a surprise in terms of a sequel and how unrelated it is. So that brings up the point that a lot of people have discussed when considering this film. Should it have been a separate entity? Was it right to slap the Cloverfield name on top of it? I heard that the original script, that was called The Cellar apparently, was unrelated, but it was a later adjustment to link it to Cloverfield. Some saying this was why it suddenly had aliens at the end. I personally didn't mind that they linked it to the first film. I liked the addition of monsters and the idea that Howard was slightly right, even if his theory about the air wasn't correct. But I don't see how this is set in the same world as the first film. Which brings me to a point that I want to discuss later in the podcast about Cloverfield possibly becoming a franchise. I think adding the Cloverfield name to it helps a little bit, perhaps more than it hindered at least, as it likely drew in more crowds than perhaps a standalone film might have done, especially in today's culture where it seems that almost every movie is either a sequel, remake, or part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Who knows, perhaps every movie is. It was still a standalone film, but at least for me, the addition of Cloverfield in the title got me more interested as it had this assumption that there would be science fictional elements to it. For me, that's a bonus. For others, perhaps not so much. I guess the main problem with that would be that it could potentially ruin the twist. The whole subplot of the movie is the question, is there really something going on up on the surface? Now, since we know what the first film was about, you could say that question has already been answered. Of course there's going to be some sort of attack going on, it's Cloverfield. But as I said earlier about the tagline, monsters come in many forms, I think that deterred the assumption a little. It did for me at least. I got the impression that I might be walking into a film solely about how monstrous humans can be, how they can be hidden in plain sight, that sort of idea. Of course, I still had a strong feeling that actual monstrous creatures would play a part sooner or later. I don't think that hindered my enjoyment of the film though. I went in deciding to forget any speculation I'd made beforehand and just enjoy the ride. So I spent the film as I think it was intended, not being sure if there was a threat outside or not. Although early on, when Michelle first tries to escape and the woman at the door starts smashing her head against the window, desperate to get inside, I was convinced enough that there was going to be an alien twist. How would they explain that away otherwise? But I didn't know if it would be a threat that would come in sooner or later. Was this a story of them having to work together despite being weirded out by Howard as something gets into the bunker? Something like the scene in that Tom Cruise War of the Worlds where they hide in a basement and play hide and seek with some bicycle riding aliens and a long tentacle thing. Who knows? But the film ended up not being focused on is there a threat outside or not. It began to be a mystery about the fate of the last girl Howard brought down here. Was she his daughter? Was this another girl lured down and held hostage in the same room Michelle was locked in? After Michelle's initial escape and encounter with the woman at the door, they start to trust him a little more, even patching up his wounds, and we have a montage of them passing the days away and seemingly getting along, playing Monopoly. Things seem okay, right until she finds a scratched help on the second exit of the bunker, followed by the realisation that the photoed girl wasn't his daughter at all, and she's wearing the exact same t-shirt. The tension of them discovering this detail and being convinced that they were stuck down here with him was the key focus of the film. They didn't think they could survive on the surface because of the air. They didn't know whether Howard would do something to them. Watching them as they try to not get caught by Howard as they attempt to figure out what they should do about it all, and trying to make the suit, getting supplies. It was all great. I really enjoyed this film and it kept me interested throughout, especially watching it at the cinema, which is always great for building up tension and suspense, such as with scenes like the one where they're being interrogated by Howard over the pot of Breaking Bad-esque acid. I think the entire cinema gasped at the moment when he fired the gun. We also had the whole developing relationship of Howard trying to treat Michelle like a child, his own daughter to care for in a strict controlling way. It was creepy to watch. I think this is how the film succeeded. There was more mystery than just a simple, is he telling the truth about the surface or not? We were trying to figure out what happened to his actual daughter, what happened to the other girl, was Emma in on it, could we trust anyone? Will Michelle survive? How can she get out? How long should they stay down here? So no, for me, knowing that it was a Cloverfield movie didn't ruin any twists for me, but it does bring us to the ending, the moment that seems to divide viewers. So, After some fire-related fiasco, Emmett left having a bath, and a freshly shaven Howard taken care of, we venture back outside for the first time since the start of the film. Birds are chirping, the wind's whistling through the fields. Was this just a trick on Howard's behalf? No. The air might have always been breathable, but there are damn space worm things on the loose, and an accidental car alarm is sending them our way. Now, I have to agree in some ways that this is likely the weakest part of the film. It was a little rushed. I can see why people figured that it might have just been a possible tagged on bit to the end of the film to link it to Cloverfield. After spending the entire film in the bunker with just 3 people, it does feel a little disconnected from the rest of the film, despite the hints we have throughout the film building up to this point, such as the woman at the door, the dead pigs, the indescribable light Emmett saw before we got inside. It still feels like a sudden jump fully into the science fiction after such a long time in a thriller. I've seen reviews say that it seems a little strange that a giant spaceship with a mouth was easily defeated by just a makeshift Molotov. How has no one else thought of that? Well, I mean, we don't know that. Perhaps everyone has figured this out. The radio broadcast at the end implied we were winning the war. Perhaps everyone's got Molotovs and is wiping out these worm things. I don't know. It does seem like 2 films mashed together a little, but I still really liked it. I found it tense, fearing for our protagonist's life. Will she escape the worm thing? Can she get the mask back on before the green gas hits her? Getting a little sidetracked slightly, but in the second viewing, once I had the DVD, I noticed that an offhand comment is made when Howard is given her belongings. He says, "Oh, I didn't have time to grab your wine or booze or something like that." And that was purely to set up that it would still be in the truck once it's getting picked up and dragging her towards the ship. It showed, to me at least, how tight scripts can be. Every line of dialogue, every action we see, all needs to be important. There's no time in the film for unnecessary fluff. It's something I sometimes forget in my own writing, getting a little distracted. But when done well, it shows little details that end up mattering at later points. Just an offhanded comment that comes back. It's a reason why I love the Back to the Future films for hidden details, but that's for another time. Right, back to the ending. I liked it. I liked how she had one last moment to show off how capable she was at handling chaos, rather than trying to just ignore it and run away. Her character arc is complete. We started off with her not wanting to talk to her boyfriend, I assume, about their fight. We hear the tale about how she froze when she could have tried to help a little girl with an abusive father. Len, trapped in this bunker, she has no choice but to face her problems head on. And she does this multiple times, proving to herself that she can have the strength to solve her problems. She doesn't need to run away. This is cemented in the final moments when a slightly exposition-y radio broadcast gives her 2 final options. Head to safety in one direction, or go help out survivors down another path. Of course, after all she's been through, she decides to go help. I know we can joke about how she doesn't actually have any of the skills that the broadcast requests, no medical or combat training, but I don't think that matters really. She can still do something, even if it's just more simple stitches on people's cuts. Her character arc is complete, the film is resolved, the credits rolled. So yes, I thought the ending worked, and personally I don't see how some of the alternatives I've read would have been better. I've heard one where it suggested that she is just eaten by the aliens suddenly, rather than a slightly hasty, perhaps slightly unbelievable battle with aliens that she survives. A sudden, abrupt, cruel twist of fate. I don't know if anyone really liked that one. The main alternative I've heard suggested would be no aliens. Let's have her walk out and realise that there was no attack. He was lying the entire time. Maybe if you're not a fan of science fiction elements in films, that would have been your preferred ending. But I don't really see how it would have worked. How would the woman at the window be explained? Or the light Emmett saw? I think I would have found it a little anticlimactic. What would she have done to confirm that her character arc was complete? Head back and talk things out with the boyfriend? We have no connection or interest in him. We only have a brief phone call to base an opinion on this guy. We don't even know what the fight was about. No, I feel the whole things were fine the entire time ending has been a little overdone. Do you disagree? Do you have your own alternative ending? Let me know. After a little bit of searching online, I did spot an article that explained that the original ending was still an attack, but perhaps a nuclear one, with the city reduced to rubble. After thinking about it, this ending would have been really impactful, a sudden reveal and then cut to black, but I still really enjoyed the science fiction approach too. I don't think we've missed too much out with this alteration. Now, as Michelle drives away, listening to the radio, we can see that the world has gone to hell. We might be winning the battle, but what does the future hold? It's a little ambiguous, and that works well, I think. But as I left the cinema, one of my friends said that they thought it was setting up for a sequel. I disagreed. I figured we didn't really need to see more beyond this point. But if there was a sequel directly following this moment, what would it be about? It certainly couldn't be another thriller, right? The mystery of the alien attack has been revealed. Would it become an action movie, watching Michelle fight against the invaders? I don't know if that would really work. It would possibly just become a standard alien invasion movie, and we've already had a lot of them. We just had Independence Day 2. I haven't seen that one yet, not sure if it's worth a watch. If they did go with a sequel following this exact story, we would have to cut out Michelle. As great as Mary Elizabeth Winstead was as the role, I'm not sure whether we really need to follow her story. Her character arc is over, as I said, the story complete. If we're stuck in this world, a switch to a new protagonist to follow would probably work better. See how someone not trapped in a bunker would have handled this situation. How have they survived for so long? Did they reach this sanctuary we hear about at the end of this film? Or perhaps did they set it up themselves? How have large mobs of people reacted to the chaos? If she was in the film, it would likely just be a small cameo. But to be honest, 10 Cloverfield Lane works best as a standalone, combined piece, isolated, just like the premise of the film. I mentioned earlier about the idea of having Cloverfield become a franchise. What if Cloverfield wasn't a connected timeline, but perhaps a motif? After leaving the cinema, I got quite excited thinking about how Cloverfield could become a collection of standalone films, all linked by their conclusion of science fiction monstery themes. Each film would be about a different cast, focusing on intimate, character-driven, or at least focused on a specific group, as the found footage movie did, as they handle out-of-this-world encounters. Small connecting details would be fun to have as Easter eggs, such as the satellites, or other things you really have to be looking out for in order to link them. Maybe they are all in the same world, maybe it's different universes. I think this would work in a similar style to things such as Black Mirror, a film version of it. Whereas Black Mirror is often focusing on a cynical, bleak look on where our dependence on technology could lead us, Cloverfield would be more about how differing characters handle monstrous situations, be that small or global. This concept had me thinking of some television shows that have done this, from Fargo, where the first series and the second series are connected by just one character, someone who hints towards a massacre that happened years ago. Then the second series is set back in that time, following this same character's younger self for an entirely different tale. True Detective attempted this as well, although it struggled a little. I can remember I stuck through the second series, but I didn't get as invested as the first one. Black Mirror is probably the closest comparison. Latter shows with a Monster of the Week format, but lengthened into a film running time. This idea of unrelated stories but being connected some way inspired my own writing a little, and I've started to try and figure out how to explore the idea of building an entire world. I'm quite into my science fiction, so my setting is likely to be some sort of future dystopian kind of scenario. But I'll see what I develop. This could be a fun concept to work with, having a world planned out but only showing glimpses of it through standalone films. It's slowly becoming clear that they are all set in the same world, allowing viewers to piece together a map and a timeline of these different events. Would characters overlap? How distant should these stories be from one another? I'm not sure, but it's an idea to try and work on at least. Right, so that was another ramble for the podcast. A little bit about my impressions of the film and where I think they should go with the potential series. I liked the ending, did you? Let me know what you think. I'm still really new to all this, but I would like to make this a more engaging podcast. If I get comments, I'll likely try to respond to them in the following episode. But yeah, I'm going to end it there. Thank you for listening. Bye.